This one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Jen in Dublin, Georgia. Nobody bats 1,000 every time, but it seems that Vince can somehow see who will be good or even great before anyone else does. And even before it seems like he would be able to see it. We may have to wait a few years before we see what he sees, like with Roman Reigns, but we usually do see it. On the flip side, he also seems to know who won't make it, even if it seems like they will. For example, when guys get released or not re-signed and go on to other companies, we often end up seeing why they were let go, even if we couldn't before. They have bad attitudes or big egos, and they just don't ever get past a certain point. How does Vince evaluate talent? Does he see things in guys? Is it something that can be quantified? Does he just go with his gut? What can you tell us about how this works?
Well, as far as what he sees in talent that he likes is a lot of the things that we talk about here on the program that I look for, that other people look for, which is, it wasn't a stretch to predict that Rocky Maivia was going to be the guy. I was not the only one saying it. Other people were saying it also. That's why he got signed, and that's why he started getting fast-tracked, which almost worked against him. You look for size, you look for look, personality, the way they adapt to the ring and their performance in it. None of these things is the only measuring stick. You've got to have something of everything. Attitude, progression. Everybody starts green and or the shits, although Rocky didn't. Most everybody does, but how fast do they progress, or do they progress at all? Do they get mentally what the business is supposed to be about? And that evaluation will vary depending on the evaluator and the era. I don't think anybody anymore gets what this business is truly supposed to be about, but you're grading on a curve. A part of it with Vince, the incredible track record, part of it is the guy that owns the company has the ability somewhat to make these things a self-fulfilling prophecy, because he's the one who controls who gets pushed. So he's looking for the same thing that any other veteran in the wrestling business is looking for. He sees it maybe in different people, or sometimes different people, than some of the other experts would see it. But if he sees that, then he's going to try to exploit that and evaluate it and promote it and push the guy to get him over. Now, if he's picked the right things about the guy to push, it will work. If he doesn't, or like with Roman Reigns, Vince could see, as anybody could see, this guy was going to be the star of that group because of his look and his personality. And then you work with him and you know whether he's got determination, drive, or whatever. These are things that are not immediately apparent to the fans because they're not working with the guy backstage and regularly and on the road or at TV and seeing what effort he's putting in, what his determination is, what his attitude is about learning things or about doing things or whatever. That's why that it's not immediately apparent until they go somewhere else, because you're not working with the guy. The fans aren't. You're not privy to his attitude until, later on. But so that's the thing. Part of it is Vince had a lot of experience in wrestling before he became the guy because of his father and working in his father's company and seeing big stars and seeing how they developed. And he has an eye for talent, or at least he used to. I don't know whether I'm saying anything now that applies to modern day Vince McMahon, 70-something years old, but the one I knew, and he was right more often than not about top talent, because to get over with Vince, you had to have a lot of those things going for you to begin with. He wasn't easy to please. There were guys that I thought their their working ability and their personality should overcome the size deficit, or the promo ability should overcome something else or whatever. But no, he even has a higher standard to himself. And if he sees a guy that he thinks can be a star and can figure out a way that he thinks he can make him a star, he'll go with that. And then, nobody could have predicted Ahmed Johnson until he actually got there and started having matches with the best talent in the world and started working with the best agents in the world. He looked like a great prospect. Watts loved him. JR loved him. Vince, everybody loved him because of the way he looked, and you thought he could get over. Then you found out that mentally he's an idiot, and he's injury prone, and he's unreliable, and he's all the other things that you have to be around somebody and you have to give it a try before you figure that out.
In the time you were there, did you see any differences in the way Vince evaluated talent from, let's say, 95 to 98?
No, in that short period of time, no, not necessarily. He didn't make any changes in terms of what talent he thought, should be on top of the card. He might have changed the way that he pushed them to get there. But at the same time, like I said, I'm not saying that he was flawless with picking in other words, everybody that he picked to be a star didn't become a star. I mentioned one, Ahmed. And everybody that he didn't pick to be a star, some of them went other places and became a star. So he's not flawless. Part of it has to do with he has the ability, once he decides somebody's going to be a star, to push them to that level. Then they got to do the rest. But, he didn't really have any magic formula he just knew, not only when he'd see a guy, he knew what he could do with him. And all great bookers. That's why sometimes you'll see, going back in history, an anomaly, a guy that got over for some reason in one territory because of the way he was used, because the booker had confidence in him. They came up with the right gimmick for the right place, the right time. Never got over anywhere else. Nobody ever tried to even get him over. You'll see that if you go through the history of wrestling. That's because sometimes it just right place, right time, right guy, and right push. You never predict those things, but you can always, when you see a Kurt Angle, a Dwayne Johnson, going back years, a Jack Briscoe, they're going to be a star. It's just a question of how big.